Hey guys, what is up? This is Dustin, the writing tutor, and today I want to talk about how you can write very organized paragraphs by using the R.A.C.E.S method. So what is the R.A.C.E.S method? Well, it is a strategy to write organized paragraphs, and it's used for paragraph response questions. So let's take a look at what it stands for. It's this acronym that stands for, first, restate the keywords. Sometimes you'll see restate the question. One of my students said, I like restate the keywords because it's really the keywords within the question that we want to put in our first sentence. So this is what it'll look like. Maybe we have a question like, what led to the fall of the Western Roman Empire? The restatement will take some of those words and put them in the beginning of the sentence. The Western Roman Empire fell. Notice that we've changed the form of the word here, fall to fell, and we've changed the order and haven't used all of the words. Some students get confused and think that the restatement is simply writing out the question again, but it's not. We're changing the question into the start of an answer. That brings us to the next slide, which is answer the question. Here we want to provide a clear answer that gets right to the point. You can put it in the same sentence as the restatement. So, for instance, we might write something like this. The Western Roman Empire fell in part because of economic turmoil within the empire. As you can see here, you might want to write a first draft and then a second draft before you commit to using this in your paragraph. All right, so that brings us to citing evidence. Now that we have our answer, we have to prove that the answer is true. So we want to provide evidence to support it. So we're going to take evidence from the text or the texts that you're working with. And evidence can be stated in your own words. That would be called paraphrasing. Or it could be a direct quote. If you're using a direct quote, note that you need to introduce the quotation. And in both cases, especially at higher levels of writing, we need to cite the source or show where the source came from. So in this case, we can start the cite evidence section with something like, for instance. For instance, document 1 states that because of overspending, Rome used high taxes to pay its military and ensure the defense of its borders. Document 3 reveals that many wealthy Romans avoided paying taxes by moving into the countryside where they would establish their own fiefdoms. So note here that I have used MLA citations to show where this information came from. And I also used that for the paraphrase, and that's what you should be doing as well. Now, these are just made up names. Smith and Johnson are two of the most common names in the United States. And so it's just to show you how this works. The next part is to explain the evidence. And here's where we want to clarify how the evidence supports our answer. We don't want to just, make the evidence, say it in another way, but we want to continue to develop the paragraph. So here I state, in other words, because of high expenses, Roman leaders levied high taxes on their citizens. And then I'm showing the effect of this. This in turn led to further economic problems and political instability as some citizens evaded taxation and sought independence within the empire. Our last letter stands for sum it up. So this is where you're going to restate your answer in a new way and bring the paragraph to a close. You'll see here that in the first sentence, I wrote, the Western Roman Empire fell in part because of a failing economy. In the last sentence, I expanded upon what I meant by in part. So I said, while there were many factors that contributed to Rome's fall, economic failure played a major role in the decline of the empire. So I've kind of come at it from a fresh angle here, and that's what you want to do as well. Don't just change a word or two, but try to express your answer in a fresh or new way. All right, so that brings us to signal phrases, and these are some ways that we can transition easily between the different parts of R.A.C.E.S. So when we cite evidence, we can use for instance or according to the text or for example, and there are many others as well. Explanation can be signaled by phrases like this shows or in other words, and summing it up can be signaled through in sum, in short, and many others as well. Okay, so let's do a brief review. Think about what each letter of RACES stands for, and I'll ask you to write it down on a piece of paper. You can pause the video while you do this. Okay, so let's review. R stands for restate the keywords from the question. A stands for answer the question. C stands for cite the evidence. E stands for explain the evidence. And S stands for sum it up. In review 2, you can take a moment to think through each part of RACES. In this paragraph, where did we see restatement? Where did we see an answer, cite evidence, the explanation, and sum it up? To check your answer, you can go back to the earlier slides within the video. Alright guys, that brings us to the end of the video. If you like videos like this, if you find them helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you need my help, I'm at goodenglish.tutors.com. Finally, if you want to use this presentation on your own to teach your own students or to teach yourself, you can get it in the link below. I'll see you next time.